Hello students, I hope everybody is fine and enjoying your health and study materials that is been posted in various tutorials. So I will again let you know that view the other tutorials for the various chapters and then come for this chapter called metals and non-metals. Okay, so this chapter is interesting as well as challenging because you will study about this concept in detail and probably you might not be knowing about these terms maybe. So we will study about the chemistry in real terms. With respect, you can see on the heading that metals and non-metals. So you should know that we all know something by this word called elements. Okay, so the whole world that is visible to our eyes consists of one or the other elements to be formed. So all matter is composed of them. So we'll talk about them in detail. For the time being, you should know that elements are basically classified into these three categories. So you can see from the board, one is metals, other are non-metals, and third are metalloids. New word is there, metalloids. So one is metals, then are non-metals and metalloids. So these are the basic types of, you can say, of various types of elements. Now let us see that what is an element first. Before moving into that, I have told you in the earlier tutorial of mine as well as in the class that you all have to get this thing called periodic table. So periodic table is nothing but a very good representation of all the elements which are with us till date, more or less. So you can see that, though we will study them in detail in higher classes, but for the time being, this periodic table is divided into two main types, or you can say two main formats. The one is when I go from left to right like this. So we call it periods, okay? When I move from left to right like that, we call them as periods, okay? And if I move from top to bottom like this, so we call it groups. So there are certain number of groups and certain number of periods in the periodic table that we will study in higher classes. For our class, we should know the elements right from hydrogen till calcium, okay? From hydrogen till calcium, we should know about them for this standard. So they have different type of terms. Some of them I hope you might be knowing. If not, so one term we will be going to use is atomic number, okay, and other is mass, atomic mass या mass number, okay, atomic mass. So each element in this periodic table has certain number given to them. So we call them atomic number, okay, and the other one we call them mass number. So whatever you can see in the red zone of this table, we call them as metals, and those who are in the yellow zone, we call them as non-metals. So as I've told you, so elements are basically classified in these two blocks. Metalloids will do it afterwards. First of all, you should know, so all those red zone area is called metals and the yellowish part is called non-metals. So you can see in each box there are some number alphabet written down. So these alphabets are its symbols, okay? So every element has his complete symbols for that. And these symbols I have told you for your class, from H stand for hydrogen till the word Ca. Ca is for calcium. Calcium. So till that term you have to learn them. So if you just take it for a glance, so you can say H is for hydrogen, then comes helium, He, helium, then is Li, lithium, then is Be. The first letter is capital, second is small. So it stands for beryllium. Beryllium. Then we have capital B here. It is for boron. Then capital C this side you can see is for carbon. Then you have N for nitrogen, O for oxygen, F is for fluorine, Ne for neon. Then you can say Na is for that is sodium, Mg is for magnesium, Al is for aluminium. So this series going on and on and on. So I will first prefer that you just have this periodic table in your reading room and just try to learn them. So there is one small mnemonic that I think you should listen to it. So that is very interesting. It says, hi, hello, listen, BBC News on Friday night. I again repeat, it's a simple mnemonic that goes like this. Hi, hello, listen, BBC News on Friday night. Now that is the format to learn at least these 10 elements in a sequential order. So first H is for hydrogen, second is for helium, L for lithium, then B is for beryllium, then is B for boron, then C for carbon, N for nitrogen, O for oxygen, F for fluorine, and N for neon. That is the inert element we call it. So since we are studying it for the first time, so that might some looks like a bit more difficult to learn, but if you just study them in this format, we have a very good song on various channels, in particular on YouTube. You can check it out. We call it a periodic table song. Okay, periodic table song that consists of all the elements, and it's a very good format. So I will prefer that if you listen to them, it will be easier for you to understand. But for our class, we are more concentrated till calcium. So we have mnemonic for that. So first I have just told you consists of 10 elements. Other will let you know for the next 10 elements. You can also search for there. So it goes that I again repeat. Hi, hello, listen, BBC News on Friday night. So that gives you the sequential order of first 10 elements. Okay. Now comes your topic, that what is an element. Now that should be known to you, because in coming years to come, this is the basic funda for all these topic under chemistry. So element is the simplest form of a matter that I have told you, which we can't split into smaller substances or build from smaller substances by any, underline the word, ordinary chemical and physical methods. So these elements are those substances, or they are the simplest form of matter that can't be split up into smaller particles or substances by any of the ordinary chemical or physical methods. Okay, for that we need special techniques. So till date approximately we are having 118 elements or 118 elements, and out of them approximately 92 of them 92 of them are naturally occurring on Earth, while the rest is being prepared by specific methods artificially. Okay, so you just know that for the time being we are having more than or close to 118 elements, and in some of the book you will find they are close to 122 also, but you will write here approximately 118 elements are there, and among 118 elements 92 occur in the earth, while the rest the scientists made in their labs. And I have told you that these elements are further broken into three parts, divided into three parts: metals, non-metals, and metalloids. That should be known to you. Now here are the something that will be studied by you in detail, and hence you must know about them. So we are now moving into the topic that how you can differentiate between metals and non-metals. So for first we are going to study the physical properties of both of them. So for physical properties, for metals in particular, so first they are lustrous. Lustrous means they are very shiny in their appearance. Then they are very good conductors of electricity, heat and electricity. Then they have very high melting point because majority of them are solid. They have high density. Then they are malleable. Underline this word, malleable. We'll read about this word again. For timing, you should know there is some word called malleable or malleability. Then is ductile or ductility. For the time being, only read these terms. One is malleable, other is ductile. And as I have told you, normally they are solid at room temperature, and they are opaque. Opaque means they won't allow the light to pass through them. And last is sonorous. Sonorosity means when you hit the metal, they give you a ringing sound. So these are some of the physical properties of metals, and they are well mentioned in your box. So please write down in the notes. They are the various physical properties of metal. Write it down, because normally you get the questionnaire from that, physical properties of metals. So if you take it for the non-metal category, the same thing is there, just in the opposite direction. So non-metals are dull. There were lustrous metals. Here the non-metals are dull. Then they are poor conductors of heat and electricity, but you make sure there are some exceptions also, okay? But this is the general difference. Then they are non-ductile. They are brittle. Brittle means you just give them the force, they break up into pieces. Then, as we know, metals are generally solid. In case of non-metal, they exist in all the three states: solid, liquid, and gas. Then they are transparent, that they allow the light to pass through them. And of course they are not sonorous. Not sonorous means they won't give you the musical note when you hammer them. So they are non-sonorous. So write down these things separately for your reference. Now comes the things in detail, the same properties that I have told you. Now you can understand the term. The metal occur in solid state. I have told you then and there only. Only exception is mercury, which is in liquid state. And you should know here the symbol for mercury is capital H, small g. Write it down. Mercury symbol is capital H and small g. And these symbols has to be learned for the whole chapter. Make sure there are lot many elements coming up. Then metals, I have told you, are malleable. Now underline the definition of malleability. That means when you beat them, you can beat them into thin sheets. You can make sheets of metals. So you all use aluminium foil when you pack your breakfast in that. You can see it looks like just like a paper. So imagine that if you hammer these metals, they can be drawn into or beaten into thin sheets, and we have lot many uses for that. So underline all. Aluminium symbol is capital A, small l, And for the gold is capital A small u, silver is capital A small g. So they have some Greek names also. That's why you can see the name begin with silver, but the symbol go for AG. So there are various names. We'll take them one by one afterwards. In the meantime, only read the symbols or learn them. Then metals are ductile. I have told you that when you can stretch them into thin wire form, and you can have lot many metals such as copper, and copper symbol is Cu, as well as these metals can be drawn into thin wires. Then aluminium wires are there. We do have the wires in case of the metal called gold, which is one of the most ductile metals. And then metals are good conductor of heat and electricity. You can see it. That's why we use in our various electrical appliances. So metals have a very good conductivity of heat and electricity both. Then we have just told you that example underline that silver is one of the best conductor of heat and electricity. Then copper is also. Then there is one exception, as I have told you that each property has some exceptions also. In case of metal, there are some which are worst conductor of heat. That means they are as good as no conductivity towards heat side. So underline that terms. One of the worst conductor for them is, underline the word, lead. Okay. And for lead, we have the symbol capital P small b. So underline these two terms. There are some metals which are not that conductor as they should be. Then metals are lustrous, as I have told you, so they are shiny in their appearance, and that's why we have the jewelry made up of both these golds and other metals, so because they are lustrous. Then they say the metals are very strong and hard, as I have told you. So exception again for them is a metal called sodium and potassium. So for sodium it is capital N small a, and for potassium it is K. They are so soft that you can even cut them with the help of knife, while the rest of the metals are very, very strong. Then I have told you metals have high density, so they are very heavy. Then metals are sonorous, so when you hit them you get a musical note from them. The metals have high melting and boiling point. So these terms I already have told you, so please go through it again and write down these points for physical properties of metals. Okay. Now similarly for non-metals, as you can see here, so in case of non-metals, they have those properties which are totally different as compared to their metal part of it. And as I have told you, there are some of the examples. Make sure to write down them. So some of the non-metals here are shown is called hydrogen. The symbol for it is H. Then for carbon is C. Nitrogen is N. Phosphorus is P. Oxygen is O. Sulfur is S. So these names should be known to, because these are the common non-metals we are going to use in our respective lesson. So hence please read them properly, because these are the examples of non-metals. So as far as the physical properties go, so whatever you have learned in case of metals, they are just opposite to it. So in case of them, so non-metals are brittle. We have told you they can break up into pieces. Examples are sulfur and phosphorus. Then non-metals are non-ductile. You can't obtain wire from them. Then non-metals are insulator. Insulator means they are not good conductor, okay, of electricity. But again, I have told you there are lot many exceptions. Then at room temperature, we have told you they exist in all the three forms: solid, liquid and gases. and of course they are non-sonorous, means when you give them a hitting they won't give you a musical note. So if you have learned about the metal's physical properties, the non-metal physical properties become easier to learn. Okay, and here that you can see that all the properties we have told you, but here with one thing is the chemical properties. Now chemical properties are a bit more different and difficult, but for your class you only have to know something called metal lose electrons, okay, and non-metal gain electrons. Now what it means, so just for time being you just understand that all elements whatever we are reading is made up of atoms, that you might have read in the last classes, and every atom have got something called subatomic particles. Okay, in short we can say SAP, subatomic particles, and these subatomic particles are referred as protons, then we call second as neutrons, and third is called, which is going we are going to study here, called as electrons. Okay, now for this class you only should know these names. So protons are positively charged, electrons are negative charge, and neutrons, you can say the name is neutron, so it is neutral, it has no charge. So here what is being told to you is that for the time being just forget about protons and neutrons. There's something called electrons. Okay, so they are negative charge. So all metals that we are going to study in this, they tend to lose electrons. Okay, and when they lose electrons they form something called cations, that you have to learn it, cations, cations. Okay, and write down this number again in your respective copies. While in case of non-metals, when they do so, because the non-metals gain, they receive the electrons, so they form anions. Okay, anions, you are going to use it a lot. So for chemical properties, you just read about these two terms and just learn them. And what is the process, how it takes place, that we will explain to you when we have a offline class. For the time being, you just read metals lose electron while non-metals gain electrons. Okay. So as I've told you, each element is made up of number of atoms, number is in thousands and thousands, and each atom consists of three subparticles. One is called protons, then is neutrons, and then is electrons. Okay, so you can just make it a small abbreviation if you want to learn. You just make a new abbreviation called PEN, PEN. So P for protons, E for electrons, and for neutrons. So for that chemical property, we just know this point basically, that metals lose electron, make sure, and non-metals tend to gain electrons. So when they lose electrons, metals, they form cations, that I have told you, this term, and when non-metals gain electron, they form anions. Okay, anions. So these two terms will be used in this chapter also. Now let us go see further here. As I have told you, the third part of that differentiation element was metalloids. So metalloids have the properties, as the name states, both the property of metal as well as non-metals. So basically what are metalloids? They are again the element which have the physical properties of both metals and non-metals. You can see some of them are very shiny, some of them are dull, then somewhere are very malleable and ductile, and there is a new word called semiconductor or semiconductor. That means they conduct heat and electricity at a lesser level than that of metals. So we will read about semiconductors again in physics another part of the subject. For the time being, you should know these three basically parts, that we have something called metalloids, which show the feature and properties of both metals and non-metals, and also properties that we have just read about. Now in this case we have some applications that is also in your book. So in the application of metals, you should know this with examples. So in case of metals, they are used for various purposes in our daily life. Say we make the wires and sheets from them. For example is copper, aluminium wire that normally we use in our domestic household activities. Then we all know metals are used for making the automobile body, the machinery part, or the water boilers. So these terms should be known to you. Similarly, metals are used for making utensils that we normally use in our own kitchenware. And then in case of non-metals, we have lot many applications here. So just check out some of them. So in case of non-metal chlorine, the symbol is Cl, okay. The sulfur and iodine, or iodine we call it, they have very big use in medical industries. Then non-metal like oxygen, you know, we need it for respiration because we inhale that oxygen that makes our life living. Then we have nitrogen and phosphorus. So nitrogen is N, phosphorus is P. They are used in fertilizers that we might have read in chapter 1. Then in case of non-metal called sulfur, we use in the Deepavali celebration. So it is used in the making of firecrackers. Then similarly we use chlorine and fluorine for the water purification process, okay. So these are the applications of non-metals. They are well mentioned in your book, so please go through them properly. Now here comes the biggest part of the chapter that normally people feel difficult to learn, okay. Now here you have to study about reactivity of metals. So we have in your textbook reactivity of metal with three cases, with oxygen, water and acid, okay. So check out these terms. So they are very important for examination point of view, and very difficult to understand sometime if you don't know the concept. So we will study about reaction with oxygen, then reaction with water, and reaction with dilute acid. So make sure these terms should be known to you. So read the first textbook, and we will present this tutorial in the next video so that you understand the topic, because these topics are a bit more difficult to understand. And in the meantime, make sure read all the things that I have told you and revise them and write them into respective copies. Okay, take care, bye.